In one absolutely whirlwind week, the entire chessboard of the war in Ukraine got rearranged. We saw two huge, dramatically different summits, both led by the same president and both aiming for one thing, an end to this conflict. So let's break down this incredibly intense week of diplomacy. You know, the big question that's hanging over all of this is pretty simple. How can two completely different approaches, playing out in two different cities, possibly lead to a single lasting peace? That's the puzzle we're really going to try and unpack here.
All right, first up, let's head to Anchorage, Alaska. This is where we saw a direct, one-on-one meeting between the leaders of the United States and Russia. I mean, you really got to appreciate the historical weight of this moment. This was not just any meeting. It was the first time these two had met face-to-face since the war kicked off, and Putin hadn't set foot on American soil in over 2 decades. Just that fact alone set a huge signal. And right out of the gate, Trump set a really controversial tone. By saying the war must end soon, he was basically signaling that Ukraine should be ready to give up territory. We're talking Donbas and Crimea, to get a deal done. Putin, of course, welcomed this idea, but he offered pretty much nothing in return. So, after all that, what did they actually accomplish? Well, no formal deal got signed, and this is critical. Putin made zero promises to pull back his troops. But the door wasn't slammed shut. They did agree to keep the conversation going, and maybe most importantly, to raise the level of their negotiators. That means moving these talks into more official, serious channels. So it was a start, but a very, very cautious one. Okay, so now let's flip the script and head to the second summit, which had a completely different vibe. Just a few days later in Washington, D.C., the scene shifted from that tense one-on-one to a massive show of collective Western strength, with President Zelenskyy right at the center of it all. And the dynamic here was just powerful. You had Zelenskyy flanked by the leaders of the UK, France, Germany, and others, not to mention the heads of the EU and NATO. Some in the media were even calling them his bodyguards. It was a crystal clear signal of a united front. And this wasn't just for show. They were talking real money and real military muscle. A massive $100 billion framework for arms and financing got put on the table. The thinking here was simple. Make Ukraine so strong on the battlefield that it can negotiate a peace deal from a position of undeniable power. But even that united front had a few cracks. A really key point of disagreement was about a ceasefire. The European leaders, and you can understand why, wanted to stop the fighting immediately. But the U.S. and Ukraine pushed back, and they pushed back hard. They argued that a quick ceasefire would just create a frozen conflict, basically rewarding Russia by letting them keep all the territory they've already taken. And this right here, brings us to the biggest, most immovable sticking point of the entire week. While Trump was hinting about concessions over in Alaska, Zelenskyy, now with his allies literally standing behind him in Washington, made his position absolutely clear. His words, Ukraine will not cede 1 centimeter of its land. No deal. Okay, so we've got these two totally different meetings, right? Now let's put them side by side so we can really decode the two very distinct playbooks that were in use. I mean, it's the obvious question, isn't it? Why was the strategy so radically different from one meeting to the next? Was this some kind of calculated, global, good cop, bad cop routine? Let's dig in. You know, when you lay it all out like this, the contrast is just stark. With Putin, the tone was friendly, open, almost accommodating. With Zelenskyy and the EU, it was firm, with real pressure to find a compromise. The main offer to Putin was essentially just more talks. The offer to Zelenskyy, concrete, NATO-style security guarantees and a ton of weapons. And the biggest clash? Well, there wasn't one in Alaska, because Trump and Putin were basically on the same page about concessions. The real clash was in D.C., with Zelenskyy's flat-out refusal, and the symbolism says it all. Putin gets recognition on U.S. soil, while Ukraine gets a shield of European solidarity. So, you have to be asking yourself, what are we supposed to make of this two-pronged approach? Is this some brilliant strategy to box Russia into a corner? Or is it just a confusing mess of mixed signals that could actually make a peace deal even harder to reach? All right, enough analysis for a second. Let's look at the concrete results. After all the talking, what's the actual plan to move forward from here? Out of that big Washington summit came a pretty clear 3-step roadmap. Step 1. The allies have about 10 days to draft those serious security guarantees for Ukraine. Step 2. Once those are in hand, Ukraine has agreed to start its own direct talks with Russia. And step 3, the potential endgame here, a super high-stakes trilateral summit with Trump,
Zelenskyy and Putin all sitting down in the same room.
So if you boil this entire crazy week down to one single sentence, it's this. Powerful, long-term security guarantees are on the table for Ukraine. But the one thing that is absolutely, positively not up for negotiation is its land. That's the bottom line. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? With Ukraine now promised powerful new security backing, but with its non-negotiable red line on territory drawn even more firmly in the sand, is a final deal truly possible? That's the complex, high-stakes reality as the world now holds its breath and waits for the next move.